We just got back from a nice week at an Airbnb. We're the type of guests who abide by the host's rules, treat the property like it's our own. That's the legacy I want to leave with those hosts. I've read so many horror stories in this group about renters, and I'm appalled. We had something quite strange happen while we were at a house this past week. A snoopy neighbor. We could sit out at night and drink wine and watch the stars. We rented in a quiet neighborhood and got to know the neighbors' schedules. Whenever either of the neighbors on either side were outside, they would have their lights on. However, one night, we were doing the usual stargazing, and I looked over to one neighbor. He was pressed up against the fence recording us. All you could see through the broken fence was his illuminated cell phone. We didn't even need to use our binoculars to see that they continued to watch us even after we caught them. It scared me and I felt threatened by this man's behavior. We ducked behind the outdoor sofa and continued the night, which we wound up cutting short. This changed how we enjoyed our outdoor time the next few nights. The house was perfect for us and we had a good time. The grass hasn't been cut actually, so it was getting long, but whatever. I don't know if I can give the owner a great review because of his creepy neighbor. I don't know what his motives were, or why he was recording us on his phone, but I feel like this is something I should either mention to the owner or withhold a good review altogether. We rented a house near the beach, so it wasn't cheap. I wouldn't want other women going there to find that same behavior. Thoughts? We arrived and entered the house by way of the code provided for the electronic door lock. We had stopped to pick up groceries and some needed refrigeration, so we carried those in first, which is when I discovered the fridge filled with food. I looked around and saw more food and personal items in the kitchen. I called out to no answer, so we walked around a bit. Imagine if you left your home for the day for work and a stranger walked in. This is exactly how it all appeared. We hurried back to the car, afraid that we were going to have the police called on us. We called the company, who reassured us and told us the house owner had said he was going to get things cleared up, which apparently hadn't happened. This seemed like something the company should have checked, but they assured us it was fine to just push things aside. In the process of clearing things away into a large closet, we found half-used bottles of cancer medications and some paperwork which indicated the owner had been treated for stage 4 cancer. Between these and other paperwork found in the house, we are fairly certain the owner died there, and his children had the body transported back to where his wife was buried in a northern state. We guess they arranged to rent the place out without ever coming to clear out their dead father's belongings. It's a little eerie for me. We were staying in an Airbnb. My parents were out for the evening. My parents were gone for a while and I was just staying up really late, past midnight on my desktop computer waiting for them to return. Like most people, I have been told a million times not to talk to strangers on the internet. But about half of my friends list on MSN were people I had never met before, so I was just chatting with a bunch of them. One of my new online friends had told me exactly what I had been doing the past hour or two, ergo, what I was eating, drinking, playing with when I had gotten up last, things I hadn't mentioned in chat. I instantly got a horrible pit in my stomach. My desktop was set up in front of a big window. So as far as I knew, this person had been talking to, that was supposed to live in a different country than me, had found my address and been watching me through the window. It turns out he had hacked into my webcam. I always left it plugged in, even though I had been warned not to when I wasn't using it, and he had been frequently watching me through it whenever he wanted. It's been 10 years and I still have all the cameras on my devices covered in thick duct tape. I was about 8 and I was taking the trash outside after the sun went down, when a hand reached from side of our back deck and grabbed my leg, trying to yank me. I screamed very loud, and I let go and I ran inside. When I was a kid around 10 years old, I was babysitting my 7-year-old sister. We grew up near an insane asylum, and every now and then we'd get an escapee in our yard. They would walk off the grounds and head through the woods towards the nearest town. They'd get about a mile to our place and realize walking 40 miles to that town was probably not happening. So then they would ask to use the phone to call and get picked up by the hospital. This happened every now and then, but this was the first time it happened when I was home without my parents. The woman who arrived in our driveway wanted me to call the hospital to pick her up, but she also asked me if I had some matches, presumably to light a cigarette. I ushered my sister into the house and locked the door as I called. The woman was kind of half screaming, half moaning. "Matches! I need matches!" Until they came and picked her up. I'm sure it was just for a cigarette, but it also could have been to burn us alive, so I didn't give her any. I was staying at an Airbnb in Nebraska. I was surrounded by woods and corn and wheat fields all around. While inside watching TV one night, I decided to step out on the porch and light a cigarette. I'm about halfway done when I take another drag, and when I blow out the smoke, it rolls around a face about a foot away from me. Needless to say, I tossed the cigarette and noped back inside and locked the doors. I was house-sitting and babysitting for a new neighbor. She was a single mom from the East Coast, moved to Minneapolis. I was a 6th grade teacher. All I had to do was sit in the house and do my math homework while she was on a date. Her 2-year-old baby was sleeping in his crib and his room. Around 9 p.m. I get a call and answer. It's some man who only asks, "Who are you?" I say I'm the babysitter. Then he starts asking all these questions about where the mom is and who I am personally. I get scared and hang up and call the mom and let her know. The guy calls back and then just starts saying the address I'm at. Then asks if the baby's okay. When I say yes, he is, he says, "How can you be so sure when he is that close to a window?" To which I just go, "I'm just the babysitter, and I'm trying really hard on my math homework, and now I'm scared and I'm also failing math." Basically, a mental breakdown happened. 5 minutes later, the mom shows up and explains it's her ex-husband who just found her. She hands me a wad of cash and excuses me. I don't know if the guy was in the bushes or calling from Massachusetts or what. It was scary. My sister had gotten home from high school and was all alone. Some guys came and tapped at the gate. Where I live, you do occasionally get people knocking, and it will either be Jehovah's Witnesses or people saying they're raising funds for a recovery program they're in, or lying about being in, or people selling something and that sort of stuff. She couldn't be bothered, so she just ignored them as she sat in the living room. After a moment of silence, she hears a bang and the garage door rolling up. She runs to the garage and screams as she sees 2 men inside. They had been scoping out homes looking for empty ones to rob. The guys likely just grabbed the 2 bikes in the garage and booked it. My mom mostly complained about the stolen bikes when she got home. But hey, way better that they took those old rusty things than ransack the whole house or do something to my sister. To this day, that's why I go to the door when people tap at the gate. I rather tell them, "No thank you," or "not right now," and have them know the house isn't empty, just in case it's someone scoping out houses. A couple years ago, I was home alone. My husband was traveling out of state. I put on the news on the Samsung TV in the living room, set the remote on the coffee table, and went into the kitchen next room over to make dinner. After a few minutes, I noticed I don't hear the sound of news anymore, and I thought maybe the signal went out or the TV timed out and shut itself off. I come back into the living room, and the TV screen is showing a picture of a couch in a living room. My living room. It takes me a minute to realize the camera in my TV has been activated and is showing a live video of the room. The remotes were still on the table, so no chance the dog accidentally stepped on them and pressed buttons or anything like that. A few days later, news broke that Samsung smart TVs had a hacking issue. I guess the real mystery is how often I was spied on before I put tape over that camera. I was watching a horror movie. I can't remember what one, but in it was a scene with lots of crows dying around a farmhouse, flying at the windows, smacking into them. And guess what the hell happened? A damn bird smacked into the window during that movie scene. I almost shit my pants and was covered in goosebumps. It was January in Minnesota. There was about a foot of snow on the ground and my parents were out at a bar. My brother was at a friend's house, but would come back later in the evening. I was in my living room watching TV and heard a small knocking coming from the basement. So I walked down to investigate all over the basement to find nothing. Not thinking much of it, I walked back upstairs to the living room to continue watching. About 5 minutes later, I hear a loud crash from the basement and what sounded like a door opening. At this point, I was pretty worried. I started to make my way down the stairs, terrified, and as I went down, I thought maybe my brother was home without me knowing. So I called his name. Nothing. I called again, and nothing. So I kept slowly moving down the stairs, only to find that there were drawers open and desks, boxes open, and a few plastic bins and containers all knocked down and tipped over, but worst of all, my back glass door wide open with footprints leading out the door. I shut it, called my parents, and when they came, my mom called the police while my dad followed them. According to him, they went over my fence and to the road behind my house where they stopped. My guess is he was picked up, but we and the police never found out if it was planned or just a random house they picked to rob. Absolutely terrifying. My husband and I stayed in an Airbnb in 2019 during the fall season. It was raining heavily outside. I was sitting on the chairs looking out the window, and then suddenly I heard something walking on the floor above me. I thought it was just a sound my mind was creating, because I was already scared, so I ignored. About 5 minutes later, I hear someone knock on the window. I thought maybe it was a bird who hit the window or something, but then, suddenly this huge floor lamp fell right on me. And I sat there for a solid 10 minutes trying to understand what happened. The lamp was perfectly fine. I still don't know or understand how it fell. Definitely the creepiest moment of my life. Thank you guys for watching and listening to the very end of this video. If you want your true scary story featured on an upcoming video, email your true scary story to my email in the description box below. I hope everyone's having a great early summer start off. Stay safe, stay scared.